Absolutely not. He's a very picky eater, though, so
Yeah,
he likes
is
everything
he?
separate.
Yeah, that's one of the few things that I could get my.
Welcome to D2 Bites, a show where our guest and I serve up quick conversations over snacks. My guest today is the VP of Creative, Patrick Sodano.
Hey, Laura.
And we are fired up to talk about heat mapping. So what is a heat map?
Heat map in the context of web design is a visual representation of what's happening on your website, what the user is looking at, where they're scrolling to, what they're clicking on. It's a point in time that gives us that information.
Where do people tend to hang out on a website as far as like, where do the hotspots tend to be?
Well, hopefully they're not all over the place.
Okay, so it's bad if it's all over the place. You want to see.
Yeah, so what we're looking for is we're looking for concentration of movement around a particular spot of content or a navigation scheme or something like that that's more uniform and controlled, and it looks like it has purpose.
How does analyzing heat maps contribute to website design when you're designing a site?
Heat maps are important, they're informative, but really they only give us half the story. What we like to do is we like to use heat maps along with session recordings, and what a session recording is a real-time recording of what a user is actually doing on the site. So when you look back at a session, you can see where they're moving their mouse, if they're taking a direct path to get from point A to point B, or they're getting lost somewhere along the way.
So you're looking at individual users and how they're using the site?
Yeah, we're looking at individual users. So as I mentioned, we're looking at both heat maps, which is a point in time. So it'll record like a click density or it'll record many movements, but that's just a still image. What we really like to do is we like to pair that with user sessions, which is a real-time recording of how a user is actually using your site. So when they're moving around the site, typically mouse movement tracks eye movement. So that gives us a really good picture of what they're looking at when they're on their site. So if they're hovering around a bit of content, if they're hovering around navigation, if they're hovering around an image, we're seeing that. We're seeing what they're doing. We're trying to figure out why they're doing it to help us inform, can we make this experience better for them?
When you're looking at individual users, do you tend to see them doing the same things, or do you tend to get an outlier or two that's just like,
Well,
what are they up to?
Yeah, it's always unpredictable. We like to think we know what they're doing, but it's not until we go in and actually see that and compare how's this user versus another user on this website. What are they doing? Have we done a good job of presenting the content and the navigation? That's really when, the rubber meets the road. For the most part, yeah, they do follow, similar paths, but there are outliners that we really have to understand. Is it us or is it them? And how can we fix that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think looking at a heat map like that, it's a very analytical thing. But the kind of doesn't really jive in my head, because I imagine when you're designing a site, it's very creative. So what do you think is that ideal balance between the analytical side, the creative side? Like how much does it overlap?
Question. You know what, my feeling is that it's always a 50-50 split. I think good design is informed design, and informed design helps the creative process. Because really, at the end of the day, the design needs to solve a problem or help on a website someone get to where they need to get. And we can only do that by understanding how they would get there.
When should somebody think about using some kind of heat mapping technology on their site?
Well, I think it depends on what the goal is. I think if there's an understanding of what your benchmarks are, and you're looking to either improve an area on the website, make changes to an area on the website, you really want to understand what's happening in that area of the website first. Good design is informed design, so it's really good to understand what's happening so that you could accommodate it in your design.
Since we're talking about heat mapping, do you have a particularly hot take for website design, maybe something that's a little unconventional?
Yeah, well, maybe not so unconventional, but I think that people just go for the search box. No matter how much is put into a navigation system and information architecture, content structure, people just want to get to what they want to get to. So more often than not, what I've noticed on websites is people just go into the search box, typing in what they need and hitting go.
I think data point of one, I go there all the time. I mean, especially for e-commerce sites.
Well, as you know, Laura, we do design quite
Yeah.
a few e-commerce sites and product sites, so that's really what's driving this with me.
Do you think that a heat map is more beneficial to an e-commerce site, like or something that's maybe more B2C, or is there just as equal amount of B2B applications?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important for e-commerce sites, especially because, again, you know, the web has become such a task-based thing that people are looking for a specific product, they're looking for a specific SKU. So, you know, our role here and the role of the heat maps in this big process is to get them to the information that they need as quickly as possible.
That makes sense. So be careful the next time you're on the internet because we are watching you.
Scary.